Well, if you're watching this video, I'm assuming that you're in the same position as me and most owners of older Hondas are in, where you bought a car that's been used by a previous owner for several, tens of years, and they wanted to turn it into some kind of a race car and rip all the AC components out of it to save a whole 40 pounds of weight. And you want to put that back in because summer's right around the corner and it's about to get hot outside, and driving these cars in the summer kind of sucks. So I'm going to be walking you through the process of that. First things to do though, I do need to swap my engine out really quick, so I'll kind of be doing that in conjunction with this. But I'm going to be going through all the components that you will need and all the components that you will probably want in order to reinstall AC into, in this case specifically, a 1988 to 1991 Honda Civic / CRX. This will probably be pretty similar for most other models around that area, so like EGs and whatever you call a first-gen CRX. I actually don't know the denominator for that chassis, but yeah. So the first big major thing you'll probably want to look into is the AC compressor. So that's going to be the one thing that's like the big major thing people want to rip out of there, because it is pretty heavy. It probably weighs a good at least 15 pounds all by itself. Most EF chassis Civics use a TR70 or a Sandin style pump. Some of them do use another style. I honestly forget the name of it, but the first thing you want to figure out is exactly which pump your system uses. I'm pretty sure all CRXs honestly use the Sandin ones, but I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But the Sandin ones, or TR70, have the more or less equally spaced holes for mounting. The other ones, it's really wonky. It's like one of them's like super high up and they're really close together, the top, something like that. But you can tell that mostly just based off of the bracket that you have, and the hoses that go to will be different as well. Now you can probably get away with using a used pump as long as it hasn't been open to the atmosphere, very much. So like this one, I've had this one all just twisted up to try to hold out any air pressure, and then this one has a little earbud in it. That might have done a pretty good job, but I couldn't guarantee if this would work or not. It still spins pretty freely, so it's something that you have to kind of just decide on your own whether or not you want to pay the money for a brand new one or try to stick with an old one that might give you problems. It might not last very long anyway. Personally, I wouldn't pay more than like 20 bucks for a used compressor from a junkyard or even from another person. But the brand new ones do cost close to $400 for these, so it might be worth the risk in that case. Me personally, I did decide to buy a brand new one, so I'm going to be using that, but just for explanation purposes, decided to go ahead and include that portion about the used pump. This is the bracket you'll need. It's going to bolt on to this side of the engine, the front, with these 4 bolts. And then there's 4 long bolts that hold the compressor onto that. And then that'll have a pulley right here to adjust the belt tension on the compressor, because it doesn't swivel at all. It's hard mounted in place. So make sure you have that. Make sure you have the compressor bracket and the compressor, obviously. All right, next major thing is going to be your condenser. This is what mounts in front of the radiator, the front of the car, and this is what actually cools the refrigerant in the system. You can get these new, they're pretty cheap. However, I've not figured out if you're able to get these brand new or not, so I had to source these from I had to source these used from a guy. They're not really like hard to find, honestly. Any Civic you find that has, or any similar model Civic you find that has these on it, you grab those. They should all be the same. But just bear in mind, you won't be able to mount your condenser without these. You could probably make something custom, but I decided to go the OEM route, just make it easy. Another relatively major component you're going to need is going to be the condenser fan. It mounts next to the main condenser for the radiator, and this is what will turn on to force air through your condenser when you're sitting in traffic, not driving down the highway, to actually make sure that you have some cooling effect going on, because if the condenser isn't being cooled by a flow of air, it's not going to make your AC cold at all. It's just not going to work, whether everything else works at all anyway. So you need that. Preferably, I guess technically you probably could put a resistor in this line to tell the system that it exists and it would work, but they're really easy to find. You may as well get one. All right, now this is called a receiver dryer. This will mount right behind the driver's side headlight, right down in that little space and this kind of just removes moisture from the system. It's like a desiccant pack, so it's, yeah, if you don't have this in the system, you're gonna get moisture problems, and it could, like, you know, rust out the internals and ruin stuff. So this is gonna mount in between all the lines anyway, so you kind of need to run it regardless. Again, this is something you can buy new. They're fairly cheap, so you may as well get it. And then your car probably still has this in it if it has the AC box, which will have the evaporator core in it. However, these systems used to run on R12, which is outdated and pretty much impossible to find because it was like an environmental problem, whatever you want to call it. They got rid of it because it was bad for the environment because of ozone depletion. So what this is an updated R134A R134A expansion valve. This will mount, like I said, inside the box, and replaces it because the expansion rates for R12 and R134A are different. So you can use the original one, but for one thing, this is super cheap. You may as well do it anyway, and also your AC may not work ideally. It may get too cold, or it may even not get really cold at all. So it's a quick, easy thing to just stick in there, so you may as well get it. Another thing is, you can get these new too. These are the hoses that go from the hard lines in the system to your pump. They're also pretty cheap, so I decided to get them anyway. You could get away with the used ones as long as they don't have leaks, but that's something you'll test whenever you're actually charging the system. So I'd recommend you get these, but you could get away without getting them. And then obviously you're going to need R134 alpha refrigerant. Now you could ignore this step and just take your car to like a Jiffy Lube and get them to charge the system for you. I prefer to save the money because it is pretty expensive to have them do that, and just do it at home. You will need to rent the pump and vacuum lines from a store unless you have them for some reason, but you know, you'll get that money back after you return the parts anyway, so it's not really that big of a deal. One more thing you're going to need if you don't have it is the actual AC button on the climate control. If you don't have that from factory, there might be like a plug right there, like a little plastic cap instead of the AC button. If you don't have that, it's pretty easy. This thing will just actually clip in from the back. It's actually a separate unit. Yeah, it's got some little like clips right there, so you would press it, pretty sure forward. Yeah, you have to press it forward to pull it out, and there's a little plug on the side here for it. So if you have the plug, just, you know, pull it out or push it forward or whatever, and then get an actual button, press it in, plug it in, good to go. Otherwise, obviously, you know, if you don't have an AC button, you're not gonna be able to turn on your AC, so you kind of need that. All right, now with my pesky engine out of the way, let me show you some things in the engine bay, how they're routed. So your two major hard lines for the AC system, I'm pretty sure the larger one is going to be your low pressure side, and the skinny one is going to be your high pressure side. Don't quote me on that, but in any case, they're different sides of the system, right? So obviously they're going to come out of your firewall here with this little plug where the condenser would be inside of the box inside. So smaller ones obviously going to go to the bottom, just like how it's routed, and it gets routed right in parallel with your other one, your bigger one, and then they split off right here is your battery tray. You're going to have this little bracket here that holds them together, and there's a little L bracket that connects to your battery tray to mount them firmly in space. I'll show you that in a minute, but anyway, the small one goes down here, and this, I'm pretty sure, is like a pressure sensor. So it'll sense the pressure in the line to make sure it's not over pressured, under pressure. This is part of what makes the condenser actually turn on, because if it's too low pressure, the system won't even let your condenser turn on because it will be potentially damaging to it. So you'll need that to be functioning, but it goes through your firewall, or through your core support, right through this hole right here, and it's gonna mount to this line that goes across the core support and back out this side. And then you've got two little lines that go right here, and they'll follow each other up past the back of the headlight bucket. One with a little like curly end, like a kind of like candy cane, goes in this way, and then 90-degree out goes straight out this way. And this is where that receiver dryer will mount. Normally there will be a hole right here to mount with a screw or a bolt. Mine's been deleted, so I don't have it anymore, but luckily I still have this one to keep it mounted in place. You will need this little bracket that holds the receiver dryer in place They don't come with that when you buy the new ones, so you'll need to source that if you don't have one at all. But other than that, the smaller one that goes down, right, is going to go right here, and that is where your condenser will attach to at the bottom connection. The other connection will be part of the hose, actually. The hose that will go from like here to your pump. And then on top of the lines, you're going to need a wire harness, right? And so usually a wire harness will be part of the evaporator. I think I misspoke earlier. The evaporator is what's inside the firewall. And you'll have a harness for the AC system that'll come out. And it'll come out through the bottom of the rubber grommet, right? And it'll go this way. And mine kind of goes up. I don't know how well you can see this, but it goes right here, it goes up, and there's a wire that comes off of it, and that wire needs to go into your engine bay fuse box right here. It's a little 1-pin wire, just connects right there, right next to all your fuses. And then it goes back down, and it's gonna run along the main engine bay wire harness for your headlights and stuff, and they use these little clips to attach them together, right? And then it's going to go up to this bracket that has a couple relays on it and a ground wire, right? So the ground wire grounds out right here, and then this bracket will normally mount somewhere around here, but again, I have holes, a lot of holes deleted in the engine bay, so I made it mount right there to make it work at least. And these will be for like your fan, and I believe one of them is for your pump. I'm not 100% sure exactly which one's which or what all they control, but you'll need all these to control the fan and the pump and everything, right? And then that wire will, the harness will follow down this direction. It'll plug into your pressure sensor, and then it'll go this way across the radiator to this green plug and this 1-pin bullet connector. The plug will go to your condenser fan, and the 1-pin bullet connector will go to your pump, and that'll provide power to your pump's clutch. All right. And then the next big step obviously is going to be mounting the actual condenser in here. What you got to do to get to that is you're going to have to remove your radiator core support / T-bracket, whatever you want to call this, to get in there preferably. It's pretty hard to do this all with it still in place, so it's ideal to get it all out of the way to do it. Alright, well, I decided to wait until after I got my engine back in for this part. Because what I was worried about is if it would swing forward at all, it might have caused some damage to it, so I figured I'd just get it in after the fact. But I got the condenser all mounted up, so those two little rubber grommets you'll need go right here and right here. There's like a bigger hole in the core support right at the edge here that they'll go into, and then at the top you will bolt these on with the 10mm nut at the bottom to hold the rubber piece to the actual condenser, and then on the front side you'll use a 10mm bolt, and there's a little tooth or whatever you want to call this to kind of align it and make sure it doesn't like move around while you're tightening it. Obviously one on each side, and that's how you mount that. And honestly, if you get the radiator out of the way, you can totally do this without removing the T-bar. Honestly, I would recommend you just do this while you're, have the engine out like I did anyway, but whatever your situation is, work with it. But the hardest part now is that I need to get to, this one's pretty easy, but there is a fitting at the front, in front of the condenser, that one of these two lines connects to, and you're not really going to be able to get to it. It's right here from outside the bumper. So for this next part, it's a lot easier if you just remove your bumper to do this. Honestly, if you're doing this, I would recommend just taking the bumper off in the first place anyway. It's really easy. All you gotta do is just take off 4 screws, or 2 screws on each side, right here and right here, and then take off your corner lights, your bumper lights, and there's 2 bolts on each side. There'll be a couple bolts underneath the plastic portion holding on to the core support, and then if you have the little under tray pieces, actually you don't need to worry about those at all. Those don't actually mount to the bumper, they just mount to the subframe and the core support. So yeah, just those two screws, bumper lights, 2 bolts underneath that, and then I would recommend removing your corner lights too, because while you're pulling them off, there is a good chance that they will scratch the bumper. Mine's already a little nicked up from me being lazy in the past, but you know, again, whatever lengths you feel like going to. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that off and show you the rest of the install process for the hoses that go to the pump. All right, with the bumper out of the way, it's so much easier to see this and get to it. There's the fitting right here that goes to this line. That line routes through your core support, back underneath, and kind of parallel to this line. Then it goes in to this side of the moisture separator, receiver dryer, whatever it's called, right? And then it goes back out through this way, around this side, and into your cabin, back out right into your pump. And then your pump will actually feed into a line that kind of like goes this way and goes into the top right here, right? Pretty basic loop. Now, it's really advisable to, as soon as you open any of these like sealed fittings, after you get this, to immediately get everything connected, tightened down, and sealed, because the less moisture you can get in the system, the better, because otherwise the moisture, the receiver dryer is gonna have to do more work. It's gonna, you know, it's gonna go bad earlier, and you know, it's just best practice. But you're gonna notice when you take this off, it's gonna hiss at you. It's because they fill it with some sort of gas, presumably some kind of, you know, dry, at least if nothing else, some form of dry gas, and they are not nice enough to give me a new O-ring for this, so I'm gonna have to go get one. Honestly, you could get like a proper, like, vehicle specific refrigerant O-ring kit. I've just been using this one from Harbor Freight for the longest time. I think it's from Harbor Freight. I could honestly be wrong. I guess this thing's open real quick. There we go. Yeah, it's got all the, you know, common sizes that you use for these. So you're basically just gonna pull one out at a time and test fit it, see how well it fits up. If you got to use one to go off of, that's awesome, but sometimes you don't. You just kind of have to see what works best, and I think this one actually is first try is a charm, or first go, happen to get it. Now, just like any other O-ring, you don't want to put this in dry. You're gonna want to lubricate it first. So get your refrigerant oil. Hang on again. Anyway, get your refrigerant oil. This actually has built-in dye in it, which is awesome. You can add dye as well to the system later, but it's always nice to have a refrigerant that just sort of contains dye in it. Kind of cuts out part of the process, but you also want to lube it up a little bit, kind of pop it in that hole, make sure it goes on without pinching, and then, yeah, that should be good. I need to do this with two hands. Hang on. All right, with a little bit of opposition towards me, I managed to get that in. Thank you, truck, for honking for no reason. And yeah, just got one down, obviously multiple more to go. You're gonna want to ideally replace every O-ring at every connection in the system. Otherwise, you know, it's a used O-ring, it's likely to fail, and then you're gonna leak out all your refrigerant, and it's gonna cost you money later on, and you're gonna wish that you just replaced your O-rings to begin with while you're in there. So definitely replace those while you're in there. And there's a flush sort of system you're technically supposed to use if you're using a used line, right? Like, you know, 99.99% of us are going to be using used lines. I don't think you can get these brand new in box anymore. So technically you are supposed to use the flush. It's like a bottle that you like compress and then you flush it through, and then you connect everything after you kind of blow it out. I don't have that available right now, honestly, and I'm just gonna use compressed air. I'm not saying that's a good way to do it, but you know, that's what I'm gonna do. So, you know, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Who cares? It's my car, not yours. So just keep that in mind. It is best practice to flush them out properly. But I'm gonna go ahead and get my receiver dryer mounted in place and get the O-rings on that real quick so that we can move on to the rest of the system. Receiver dryer is pretty basic, obviously. It doesn't take a rocket science to figure out, but just in case you need to know, here's the bracket for it. It's just this little thing that wraps around the side. Has a screw to tighten it on so it stays in place. They're even nice enough to give you a little L-shaped bracket to set the bottom on, so you know exactly how high to mount it. So that's actually pretty convenient. But you'll just get it in there, you'll clock it the right way so that you can line it up with your two hard lines, so you're not, you know, cocked off to one side, and then you'll mount it to that hole. And if it existed, it probably should on yours, it doesn't on mine. There should be a hole right there for you to mount that on, but yeah, like I said, I don't have it, so just using the one. So let me go ahead and put that in place real quick. Alright, now we're inside the passenger side of the car. Not just to show you my beautiful Turkish reproduction floor mats, but because we need to remove the glove box so we can get to all the AC blower and boxes behind it, because I need to take out the evaporator box to get to the expansion valve, which we need to change. So not a super involved process. There's a couple screws right here that hold the glove box on. You can take those out and pretty much just remove it, get it out of the way. There's a little bar in the way that's gonna have some 8 mils and a 10 mil holding it in place. I think all the 8 mils have Phillips head screw inserts too, so you might be able to get those off the screwdriver, but I mean, have an 8 mil handy just in case anyway. And there's gonna be some 10 mil slash screws that hold on a couple little brackets and bolt to the firewall to hold that box on. You'll just slide out that middle box. You're gonna have to remove the grommet from the firewall first, and possibly a couple electrical plugs, and just pull that out of the way, and you'll be able to kind of just pull it into the passenger compartment and work on it right here. You might want to put down a towel or something. It might be, more than likely it might be filled with a bunch of just dirt and just leaves and sometimes rat nests, stuff like that. They get pretty nasty if you don't take them out for a long period of time, so just be prepared for that. But let me get that out real quick and I'll show you the next step. All right, evaporator box is removed. It's actually a little simpler than I was saying even too. There's one wire that goes up around like this and goes into this little doohickey right here, which I don't actually know what that is at all. Whatever. But there's the drain tube you need to disconnect. There's going to be a nut right here, 10 millimeter bolt right here. There's the two brackets that are held in with Phillips head screws right here. And then you don't have to do anything else. You can just slide it right out. You can leave your grommet in place. The wire harness and everything will stay in place on the chassis, and you can just pull it out and expose these. But now what we need to get to is this little guy hanging out in there, because more than likely what you have in your system is an expansion valve meant for R12, and like I said earlier, they don't really work the same, so it's ideal to swap it out with the R134A expansion valve. So to do that, you got a few Phillips head screws around here. You've also got some of these little spring clips. Now what I do to get those off is this is a full of Phillips, but I would take a flathead and you'll shove it in there, and you can just pry it up and pull it out, and they actually come off really easy. No need to like pry them off and fling them in different directions and stuff, you know, but they kind of go around the side, all around here. Get all those off, remove this. I think there's actually a bracket. No, it's inside, never mind. So yeah, you get all those off, remove the top, and that'll make it a whole heck of a lot easier to get to that valve. Undo both of the connections, the fittings, and you'll follow this little wire here, which will be part of your new one too, and it's going to basically just stick into the evaporator coils. It's like a temperature sensor of sorts, right? So it tells your system like how cool the AC is getting, so it doesn't over freeze itself and ice over. But anyway, yeah, I'm gonna stop yammering and get that all done. All right, so a little bit of a concept error here, but the fittings on your expansion valve, this presumably is some form of pressure port. It's got a hole that leads all the way in there, so more than likely that's for pressure, and then this would be for temperature, presumably. So this is gonna go right there. Sort of has a nut that goes onto it and bolts right up. There is an O-ring in there. Don't forget to change that O-ring. There's an O-ring for every fitting on this thing. This is weird. There's a little bracket. Let me get it. This little bracket thing is gonna go around this to hold this onto the side, and then they kind of wrap it in this nasty, like, gooey tape stuff. So I don't know, try to reuse that if you can. If not, you know, some pipe insulation will probably work just the same. That's what I'm going to use, because this is gross. But everything's exactly the same on this, you know, just spool out the copper stuff whichever way you feel is best to route it. Get everything installed up, and then the outlet on this actually goes up this way, and it's just a completely separate tube. But, you know, just go ahead and get that done, and preferably kind of clean this all up. While you're flushing this thing, bear in mind it does hold a lot of the lubricant in the system, so be prepared to get some spouting coming out of this, just to forewarn you. Alright, that's about something like what it should look like when it's done. Like I said, I replaced all that nasty stuff with pipe tape. It's like water pipe insulation. It's like stick-on, sort of like foamy tape. You can get it at like Lowe's or probably Home Depot too. It's super handy for stuff with cars and stuff like that. So just got some of that, wrapped it around, and good to go. So gonna go ahead and stick the top back on this, get it all connected again, and stick it back in the car. Alright, FYI, I'm pretty sure this is actually the temperature sensor I was thinking about earlier. It does go in and into the coils. But also wanted to mention, you probably have pretty messed up insulation around the ceiling areas of your AC box, and it just falls right off, if not flakes right off. I use 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch or door weather stripping. They sell at Lowe's again. You know, you just go get it in big rolls, and you just gotta cut it to length, tape it on after you clean this up, and it replaces this stuff really nicely and gets a nice airtight seal, so all the air is getting cooled, not just sort of leaking out in random places. Just a little bit of tidbit information for you there, for your tired minds that are probably sick of listening to me. Don't worry, we're almost done. Gonna get this in, and then a couple more things in the engine bay, and then basically finished. Alright, now that I got that box all back up and installed, and I got the lines all running back through the engine bay again, I have every line and every other thing in place except for the suction line right here that goes to the pump from the hard line. Now, this one is a super kind of tricky pipe to get in, because it's partially a long hard line that kind of goes down and snakes up and around to go into the fitting right here. It's kind of a struggle, because you kind of got to like shove it down and also back in. There's a little bit of, you can flex this just a little bit, you know, but like be careful. If you break that and cause a leak, you're gonna have to buy another evaporator, or excuse me, condenser. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. It's spaced out so it can go under there, and you can still have space to slide the radiator in. And then it goes just up in a loop right here and goes in right here, right? Now the reason I don't have this last hose in place yet is because this specific compressor came pre-filled with 3 ounces of the lubricant for the system, right? And for this model of car, it requires 4.5 ounces total of lubricant. Now, there may be some stuck in your system if you choose to not flush it, but if you do flush it out properly, you're gonna have effectively 0 lubricant in the rest of your system. So you're gonna have to add that last 1.5 ounces. And the way you do that is you use this port, which will be the suction on the pump. And you can do this without one if you want, but I'm gonna use a funnel, right? Just gonna stick a funnel in there, and it calls for PAG 46 lubricant. You can use pretty much any brand, make, model, whatever. PAG 46 lubricant. Just make sure you use the right kind, otherwise you may blow up your compressor. I'm personally using this Frigi Quiet 2 refrigerant oil. It says on the website that it's compatible with PAG 46 to 100 rating, so I'm not too worried about whether or not it's the right stuff or not. I'm not saying you should use this stuff, I'm just saying I am. You know, I have no experience prior with using this, just showing you what I'm using. But anyway, it's marked on the bottle in measurements of 2 ounces each, and luckily if you hold it straight, it's at about 2.5 ounces already. So I'm just going to pour all that stuff at the top down to the 6 ounce line in, and while I'm doing that, I'm going to have to rotate the compressor in the way of engine movement, which would be counterclockwise in this case. So luckily you don't have to move the belt at all, because the clutch isn't engaged. You just spin this wheel, the inner portion of it, and you can spin the compressor without spinning the belt or anything. If you try to use the belt, it's not going to turn because the clutch isn't engaged. So you're gonna pour some in here, turn around until the level goes down, and then do that until you've added, in this case, 1.5 ounces, but whatever your system requires, are in this case 4.5 ounces total. And if you're using a used pump, that's another, you know, situation where you're not, it's an unknown. You don't exactly know how much is in there, and you also don't really want to overfill your system with lubricant. So it might be a good idea to try to flush your pump out too. Again, that's one of the biggest reasons why I don't like using used pumps, but do what you got to do. All right, I just finished putting in the last 1.5 ounces. At this stage, if you have refrigerant dye, be a good time to add a little bit of that. In this case, this stuff contains it, so you don't need to, but again, you can do that now. Or if you really, for whatever reason, want to, you can add it after the fact. With there's like a tool you use to put them in the cap, and it kind of flushes it in with the refrigerant. But you know, if you have the opportunity, this is the easiest way to do it. So now I'm just gonna get that last hose on, and that will actually complete the system. So the next step is gonna have to wait till I finish getting this engine finished up and running, which I'm almost there, but a little bit more work. All right, once you get your systems fully installed and you get your radiator and everything back in place, your car should look something like this. Obviously these are all just already in place, but all the hoses, this is kind of how they route. This one almost looked like it wanted to go on this side, but it actually goes on this side. There's a little bend right here. I'm not 100% certain if that's supposed to like curve down or not, but this is about the only way I could get it to like not really seem like it's going to interfere with the manifold. So I put it in a downward position. This little bracket right here will attach to the same place where your fan mounts to, your radiator fan. Your condenser fan will be sitting on these two pieces right here, and it screws in, and there's a little thing at the bottom that'll clip it in. It also has a little like weird clip right about there that looks like it wants to like hug the radiator, but it doesn't. It actually just goes in the fins. That was kind of weird, but I mean, it goes where it goes, right? So like I was saying a while ago, this little green plug, I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's a green plug right here on the condenser fan that green plug in your wire harness will go to, and then the little bullet connector that branches off will go to your pump, and that would be basically fully wired. Oh, actually no, that would be fully wired. And then all you gotta do at this point is evacuate the system and charge it. I'll get to that in a minute. Obviously I gotta finish putting my engine together first, and this will be a good time to mention, I don't think I have yet, that if you want to run AC in this car, it is an extremely tight fit with this condenser fan. Now, technically you could get away with just bridging the connector for the fan with like a, I don't know how many ohms it would be for resistance, but you want to put like a resistor in there so it thinks there's a fan there, and then just connect the pump. But you wouldn't get any flow at a red light until your radiator kicked on. But you could run an aftermarket header like that. But otherwise, if you want to run the condenser fan, the OEM one, you're probably not going to be able to get away with any aftermarket header. I'm running a stock header for a reason. Now, this is an HF header. It's slightly different from an SI header. I think it's actually even thicker than an SI header, so you'd probably be able to fit that even easier. But it's a pretty tight fit. There's, I would say, maybe a 1/2 inch clearance at most between the back of the fan and the front of the heat shield. So just keep that in mind. If you want to do this, you will more than likely have to run a stock exhaust manifold, which honestly not the worst thing in the world. These engines really don't make that much horsepower, and adding an aftermarket tubular header really doesn't do too much to them besides add sound and, I don't know, maybe a tiny bit of torque. But yeah, bear that in mind. So gonna get this thing fully assembled finally, get it all back to running again. This is a fresh engine build I've been doing. If you missed this, it's probably going to be the most recent video on my channel before this video. But yeah, I'm gonna finish that up, and then we will get to the next step, which is evacuating the system and charging, as well as changing up some fittings. All right, a little change of scenery here. It took me a few days to figure out some miscellaneous issues with the engine swap that I did, but now I have it all figured out and I'm ready to actually get this thing charged so I can have AC, because it's actually starting to get a little bit warm out here, so good time for it. So you see I've got the sort of manifold thing for the AC lines, and as well as a vacuum pump. I'm renting these from AutoZone. It costs about like 400 bucks, but you get that back when you return it. So basically you can do this for free, aside from the cost of the refrigerant, which you're gonna have to pay for, which is like $50 to $70 per container. But now, before I can actually do anything, there's one more extra step I gotta do. So you'll see I got these two connectors, right? And these are for our 134A systems. So if you try to connect them to a CRX system, which all came with R12, you'll notice that they don't clip on anything. These are just sort of threaded, and the old R12 connectors were supposed to thread on. Now, if you've got the equipment and access to R12 somehow, you can just, you know, stick with the stock connectors and get the proper manifold for getting the system out. But most people don't have that because it's pretty much entirely illegal now. So for everyone else, including myself, what you're gonna need is one of these. It's a R12 to R134A adapter kit, and basically with these fittings will just screw onto the R12 adapters, and then they will adapt to the connectors on the charging manifold. Now, to do this, you'll need one of these tools. This is a Schrader valve tool, like a Schrader valve screwdriver. If you've never heard of a Schrader valve, it's the same thing you use for your tires and your, you know, in this case AC, but pretty much any connection that holds pressure and you fill up with something like a bike pump, we'll use one of these. And you're gonna see a Schrader valve inside of here and inside of here. Now, my particular adapter kit, you have to remove the Schrader valve from here. I've already removed mine. It's, you know, somewhere, I don't remember. But there's still one in here. All I gotta do is just stick this in here and figure out where it connects, and then just rotate to get it out. But like I said, I'm not gonna need to remove that one because the adapter that I have doesn't delete it. However, for this one, it does delete it because this connector has a internal Schrader valve. So I'm gonna go ahead and install those really quick, and then we can get to purging the system. And I didn't even film the install for that because it's literally just that easy. You just screw them on and they seal, and then you can connect your fittings to them. So there's a high side fitting. It will go down here. Just click it up like an air hose, click it on, good to go. The exact same thing with the low side fitting, or the low side fitting. There you go. Now, it's pretty easy, it's color coded. You just put the blue to the blue, red to the red, and the yellow goes in the middle and goes to the pump. And you'll just turn this on with the power switch, and then open both of these, and you'll notice it starts to pull a vacuum. There you go. Also, I forgot to mention, these fittings have a little screw right here that will actually actuate the Schrader valve. We'll press it down to let it pull air from the system. If you don't tighten these down after you snap them on, you're going to be just pulling air from this line and nothing from inside the system. So make sure you do that on both of them before you start pulling a vacuum. And I'm going to let this sit for a while and pull as much of a vacuum as it possibly can. I like to try to rotate the compressor a little bit while it's doing this, just to make sure any air inside of the compressor is evacuated as well, because you want as little air in the system as you can possibly get. Alright, now you're not going to be able to get a perfect vacuum of 30 inches on here, but just try to get as close as it'll go. You know, it'll stop at a certain point, and then that's pretty much as far as you're going to get. At that point, you want to go ahead and close both your valves. Actually nice and tight, you don't want to leak by on these. because next we're going to disconnect the pump after we turn it off. Put all that air into the pump. And that seal's broken. Now what you're going to do is you're going to keep an eye on these gauges, and you're just going to wait to see. I like to wait about 30 minutes just to be absolutely certain, maybe even an hour if you got time, just to see if this vacuum is going to drop at all. Because if it starts to build any at all, you have a leak in the system somewhere, and your AC isn't going to last anyway. So take the time to wait and make sure that this is good. You have a good seal in the system before you start adding any refrigerant, because you're just going to be wasting your time and money. Right now, unfortunately, it seems like my system has a leak somewhere because it has gone down. Now, to find a leak, it would help a lot, you know, if you weren't parked next to an active highway that always has traffic on it, so you could listen for the leak. Actually, not too hard to find it that way. I don't really have that luxury though, so what I'm going to do is actually get the system down as much as I can and then charge it up just enough to get the AC pump running, so that I can use the dye that's in the system that will inevitably leak out while it's running to find the leak. So kind of sucks I gotta waste the refrigerant to do it, but you know, it's gonna be a pretty easy way to figure out where the leak's coming from, exactly where it's coming from, because it could be on the condenser or the evaporator, and I wouldn't really know if I was just listening for it. I would think it was those fittings, when it could just be the actual coil having a crack in it somewhere. So I'm gonna do that real quick and I'll see what I can find. Alright, that was actually pretty easy to find. Turned out to just be a bad Schrader valve on the high side. It was spewing out fluid right here. If you look close enough, you can probably see the dye that was on the firewall when I had to remove it. But got that fixed and figured out. So now I've got the refrigerant line connected to the low side, the engine running, and basically just dropping it. Just going in and just adding and adding and adding until I get to around the 30 to 40 range, which is when it would be full. It helps to hold it upside down and shake it a little bit. Kind of helps it go in there a little bit more. I'm gonna do this for a little while till I get there, and then we'll see what it does to the vents inside the car. Alright, I've added all the refrigerant it's gonna take. I'm gonna go ahead and just cap my fittings here. This will really help you in the future find a leak through your Schrader valves if you have one, or if one develops. Because you'll take those off of the engine off and it'll spew a little bit of pressure out. So that holds in the pressure, hopefully. And while I've been doing this, I've had the AC blasting. You want to do this with the AC on full blast, all the doors and windows open, engine running obviously. And man, it feels nice and cool in here. But I've had this thermometer here, unfortunately this is the best I've got, and right now it's blowing at around 45 degrees. This thing's a little inaccurate too, so it's actually closer to 40. Wow. I've owned CRXs for over 10 years at this point, and this is the first time I have ever experienced AC in one. And it's magnificent. Just in time for summer too, because right now it's just the beginning of spring, honestly, but it's already starting to get a little hot some days here in Virginia. But anyway, that's it. It's done at this point, and that's all you gotta do now is just enjoy your ACs when it's hot outside. If it starts to die out on you, you know, for you know, a few days, if not a few weeks or months even, then more than likely you just have either some failed component or a leak somewhere that was just so small it took that long to drain out. So you'll need to find that refrigerant dye will help immensely with that. Just get a little, they sell like UV flashlights, like black lights. You just shine that around all the places where the AC is until you find it glowing, and that's your leak. Just fix whatever's leaking. But yeah, this is awesome. I can't wait to utilize this during the summer. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you don't mind, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, leave a like if you enjoyed this content, and I'll see you guys next time.